Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Intimacy Lab. Let me ask you something, have you ever noticed the way a younger woman's eyes soften, almost melt, when she's around a man with a little more grey in his hair, a little more life written into his smile? Maybe you've wondered, what is it that she sees in him? Is it money, status, power? Or could it be something deeper, something that has little to do with bank accounts or shiny cars, and everything to do with how he makes her feel in his presence? This is what fascinates me, because attraction is rarely about the surface. It's about energy, presence, and the story a man tells without ever saying a word. Younger women are not simply choosing older men. They are responding to a subtle rhythm, the calmness, the steadiness, the quiet confidence that often comes with age. When a man has lived, has stumbled, has rebuilt himself, he carries a weight, a gravity. And for a woman who is still finding her place in the world, that gravity can feel like safety, like possibility, like the kind of intimacy she craves but doesn't yet know how to name. Now, I want to be clear here, this isn't a story about gold, digging, or outdated stereotypes. This is about something very human, the way we are drawn to what makes us feel alive, what makes us feel held, what makes us feel like we can grow. And so, when we ask, why do younger women sometimes prefer older men? We are really asking about the psychology of attraction, about the way power, experience, and vulnerability weave themselves into intimacy. So let's begin with the first truth, presence. You see, a younger man may have energy, charm, enthusiasm, but often his attention is scattered, restless, searching for the next thing, the next thrill, the next conquest. An older man, when he has matured into himself, carries a different quality. He can sit across from a woman and actually be with her. Not half with her, not scrolling his phone, not waiting for her to impress him. He is there, grounded, looking into her eyes as if there's nowhere else to be. Do you know how intoxicating that can feel for a woman? For someone who is used to the rush and chaos of shallow attention, that stillness feels like a warm embrace. It tells her, you matter, I see you, I'm not going anywhere, and presence is not taught in textbooks. It comes with time, with heartbreak, with losing things and realizing what truly matters. It comes with learning that intimacy is not about performing, but about being. Younger women feel that difference. They can sense when a man isn't trying to prove himself, but rather is comfortable enough to let her unfold in her own time. And that is magnetic. But presence is only one layer. Another reason younger women are drawn to older men is emotional security. Think about it. In a world where so many relationships are fragile, where people ghost each other at the first sign of discomfort, stability feels like a treasure. An older man who has navigated storms doesn't run at the first drop of rain. He has learned that disagreements, tensions, even silences are part of love. And so he doesn't dramatize them. He doesn't turn every little misunderstanding into a war. He can hold the tension, breathe through it, and stay. That reliability, that sense that she won't be abandoned the moment things get hard, is deeply attractive. Emotional security doesn't mean he is perfect. It means he has perspective. He knows that love is not about winning an argument, but about keeping the connection alive. And when a younger woman feels this steadiness, she often experiences it as a relief. Suddenly, she doesn't have to carry the burden of being the mature one. She can lean into him, trust him, and in doing so, discover a new side of herself, softer, freer, more playful. Isn't that what so many of us long for? To be with someone who makes us feel like we don't always have to be on guard. And then there's the wisdom factor, not wisdom in the sense of quoting philosophers or giving long speeches, but the kind of wisdom that shows up in small moments. An older man knows the difference between silence and neglect. He knows when to push and when to let go. He understands that sometimes the most intimate gesture is not a grand declaration, but a quiet hand on her back at the right moment. These are subtleties younger men often haven't yet mastered, not because they are bad, but because it takes years to refine the art of connection. Younger women notice this. They feel the way an older man creates space for them to blossom, rather than rushing them into who he needs them to be. Let me give you an example. Imagine a younger woman coming home after a long, exhausting day. She's venting, her words pouring out in fragments, half complaints, half confessions. A younger man might interrupt, offer solutions, or become defensive. But the older man, he listens. He doesn't try to fix her. He doesn't need to dominate the moment with advice. He just lets her speak, nods, maybe holds her hand. And in that simple act, she feels something rare, understood, and that is often worth more than diamonds. So far, we've talked about presence, emotional security, and wisdom in action, but there's another layer we can't ignore: confidence. Not the loud, boastful kind of confidence that shouts, "Look at me," but the quiet confidence of someone who knows who he is. Younger women are drawn to this because it feels safe, it feels stable, it feels inspiring. Confidence tells her, "I don't need to control you to feel strong. I don't need to impress you to feel valuable. I am enough as I am," and when a woman feels that energy, it allows her to step into her own feminine power without fear. She doesn't have to compete with him. She can relax into her own self, because his strength isn't fragile, it holds, it supports. Now, this doesn't mean all older men automatically embody these qualities. No, many don't. But when a man does, when he has cultivated presence, emotional security, wisdom, and confidence, he becomes magnetic. Not because of his age, but because of his growth. And younger women, who are often still surrounded by peers who haven't yet grown into themselves, notice the difference immediately. They are not just choosing a man, they are choosing an energy, a way of being, a possibility for themselves. And here's the beauty of it: none of this is limited to older men. Any man at any age can begin to cultivate these qualities. Age simply gives more opportunities to practice, but presence, security, wisdom, confidence, these are choices. They are practices, and they are available to anyone willing to step out of ego and into intimacy. So when we peel back the layers, what younger women often seek isn't just the man, it's the feeling he creates in her. And that brings us to something so powerful, yet so often misunderstood: the allure of life experience. You see, there is a difference between knowledge and lived wisdom. A younger man might know things, he might be well read, ambitious, intelligent. But an older man, when he has truly paid attention to his life, carries the lessons of what he has lived through. That's a different kind of knowing. It's in the way he tells a story, not to impress, but to share a glimpse of the road he has walked. It's in the way he laughs, not just at a joke, but at the irony of life itself. Experience brings a richness that makes the present moment feel deeper, more textured. For a younger woman, this depth can feel intoxicating. It offers her a chance to step outside of her own limited timeline, to feel the weight of history in someone's touch. And in that, she finds not only attraction but also expansion, because being with him stretches her understanding of herself and of what life can be. It's not about the years, it's about the stories those years have written into him. But beyond experience, there's also generosity. And I don't mean material generosity, though sometimes that's there too. I mean generosity of spirit. An older man who has shed some of the insecurities of youth is often more willing to give without keeping score. He knows that love is not a transaction. He gives his time, his attention, his presence without the constant anxiety of, will she give back the same? That freedom from calculation is deeply attractive, because when a woman feels that she is not being measured, not being tested at every turn, she can relax. She can offer herself more fully, without fear of rejection for not meeting some invisible standard. There's also the matter of perspective. With age comes the understanding that the small things are just that small. He doesn't panic if she doesn't text back within an hour. He doesn't spiral into jealousy because she laughed at another man's joke. His self-worth is not hanging by a thread, and this steadiness allows her to breathe, to feel free rather than controlled. Paradoxically, it is in this freedom that intimacy flourishes. She trusts him not because he holds her tight, but because he allows her to be, knowing she will return not out of obligation, but out of desire. And perhaps most importantly, there is presence in intimacy. An older man who has taken the time to understand himself often brings a different quality to the bedroom, to touch, to closeness. He knows that intimacy is not a performance. It is not about speed or conquest. It is about savoring, about connection, about paying attention to the subtle cues of the body and the heart. For a younger woman, this can be a revelation. It shifts the experience from something transactional to something transformational. So when you put all of this together, experience, generosity, perspective, intimacy, you begin to see why the attraction is not just physical, not just social. It is deeply emotional, deeply psychological. Younger women are not simply choosing older men, they are choosing the energy that makes them feel safe, seen, expanded. They are choosing the chance to step into a different rhythm of love, one that feels both grounding and liberating. And isn't that what we are all, in some way, searching for? And yet, as powerful as all of this is, we cannot ignore the most subtle layer of attraction, the way older men embody a sense of self that feels unshakable. You see, one of the deepest human desires is to be with someone who doesn't lose themselves in every storm. Younger women often sense this in older men, the way they carry themselves, the way they handle setbacks, the way they refuse to let small challenges derail the bigger picture. This resilience is not about being unfeeling, it's about having walked through enough fires to know that life goes on. That energy is magnetic because it communicates one essential truth: you are safe with me. Now imagine what that does to a younger woman who is still navigating the chaos of her 20s. She is often surrounded by peers who are chasing identity, chasing careers, chasing validation. The older man, in contrast, has already claimed his identity. He is no longer chasing, he is living, and in that space she feels a kind of permission to slow down, to breathe, to discover who she is without so much pressure. That's the gift of stability. It doesn't cage her, it frees her. But there's another dimension here that is rarely spoken about. It is the allure of contrast. A younger woman with an older man is often aware of the differences between them, different generations, different references, different stages of life. And yet, rather than being a barrier, that contrast can be electric. It creates a polarity, a dynamic tension that fuels attraction. The unfamiliar becomes exciting. His patience meets her fire, his calm meets her curiosity. In that exchange, both are transformed. He feels renewed by her energy, she feels grounded by his steadiness. Together, they create a chemistry that neither could access alone. Of course, woven through all of this is the question of power, and we must acknowledge it honestly. Sometimes what draws younger women is the sense of power. An older man holds social, financial, or simply psychological. But true attraction lasts only when that power is not wielded as control, but as responsibility. The older man who uses his strength to create safety, who uses his position to inspire rather than dominate, becomes deeply desirable. He is not trying to take her freedom, he is trying to expand it, and when she feels that, trust grows. Desire grows, love grows, and let us not forget playfulness. Yes, playfulness, because contrary to the stereotype, many older men who are at ease with themselves rediscover their childlike joy. They laugh freely, they tease gently, they know how to turn an ordinary moment into something memorable. For a younger woman, this is often unexpected. She anticipates seriousness and instead finds lightness. She anticipates rigidity and instead finds humor, and it's in this dance between depth and play that intimacy becomes irresistible. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, what emerges is not a cliché but a truth. Younger women are drawn not to age itself, but to the qualities that age can cultivate: presence, generosity, perspective, intimacy, resilience, contrast, and yes, even play. These are not bound to the number of candles on a birthday cake. They are bound to the way a man chooses to live, to grow, to love. And in recognizing this, perhaps we see that the real question is not why do younger women prefer older men, but rather how can any man at any age embody these qualities that make him magnetic. And as we dive deeper into this exploration, there is something else we must talk about: the way older men carry time differently. Time, for them, is not a race. They are not constantly trying to prove how much they can achieve in a day, or how many goals they can cross off a list. Instead, they savor. They understand that presence is not only in conversation, but in the rhythm of life itself. A dinner is not rushed. A walk is not just about getting from one point to another. Even silence becomes a companion rather than a void to be filled. For a younger woman, who often feels pulled in 100 directions, this slower rhythm can feel like stepping into another world. She experiences intimacy not only in words, but in the space between them, and in that space something magical happens. She begins to feel what it's like to be fully seen without the pressure to perform. She realizes that love can be patient, that connection can be deep even when nothing dramatic is happening. This is the gift of presence stretched across time. It transforms ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. And it is precisely in this simplicity that many younger women find themselves falling, not for an age, but for an experience of love that feels rare. There's also the role of mentorship, though not in the literal sense of teaching, but in the subtle guidance that comes from someone who has lived more years. An older man doesn't necessarily set out to be a teacher, but his way of being can open doors for her. He may challenge her to think differently, to consider perspectives she had never entertained. He may show her that strength can coexist with tenderness, that success doesn't have to mean exhaustion, that intimacy is not a performance but a practice. And in that gentle mentorship she feels supported, not directed, encouraged, not controlled. But we must be careful here. The attraction is never about dependency, it is about inspiration. A younger woman does not want a father figure, she wants a partner who makes her feel both safe and alive. And an older man who understands this, who offers his experience without diminishing her agency, creates a relationship where both evolve. She grows into herself, and he rediscovers parts of himself he thought were gone. Together they create a dynamic of mutual growth, where age becomes less of a barrier and more of a bridge. And here lies another secret, mystery. By the time a man reaches a certain age, he often carries a quiet mystery, born not of games but of depth. He doesn't reveal everything at once. He has layers, stories untold, corners of himself that invite curiosity. And this mystery can be far more alluring than the predictable transparency of someone who lays it all out too soon. For a younger woman, this sense of unfolding, of discovering him, slowly keeps the attraction alive. It becomes a journey rather than a destination, a discovery rather than a transaction. So when we put it all together, what emerges is a portrait not of an age gap, but of qualities that make love magnetic. The patience with time, the gift of presence, the inspiration without control, the mystery that invites curiosity, all of these create a unique experience of intimacy. And that is what younger women often find irresistible. It's not simply that he is older. It's that his life has shaped him into someone who can offer a different way of loving, a way that feels both grounding and expansive at once. And so, as we arrive here, it becomes clear that what younger women are drawn to is not age itself, but the man that age has shaped. They are pulled toward the way he carries his stories, the way he wears his scars, the way he refuses to let the storms of life close his heart. That is the real secret. It isn't the number of years, it's the depth of those years, the meaning carved into them, and how he chooses to share that meaning with someone new. But there's one more dimension we need to explore, something rarely spoken about openly, and that is the freedom an older man often embodies. Freedom from needing constant validation, freedom from the frantic proving of youth, freedom from the narrow idea of what masculinity should look like. This freedom is deeply attractive because it creates space for a woman to be herself without fear of judgment. He isn't threatened by her ambition. He isn't diminished by her independence. He doesn't measure her against his ego. Instead, he delights in who she is becoming, and for her that feels like home. This freedom also brings with it a kind of curiosity. Because a man who is free is a man who continues to learn, who doesn't believe he has all the answers. And that curiosity keeps him alive, keeps him magnetic. He can look at a younger woman not as someone to mold or control, but as someone to discover, someone to marvel at, someone to co-create a story with. And that perhaps is the most powerful aphrodisiac of all, the feeling that the relationship is a dance, not a hierarchy. And let's not forget one final truth. When a woman chooses an older man, she is often choosing the way he makes her feel about herself. Because ultimately, attraction is never just about who the other person is. It is about who we become in their presence. With him, she may feel more confident, more feminine, more secure, more playful. With him, she may discover parts of herself she didn't know existed. And it is in this self-discovery that love deepens. She is not falling only for him, she is falling for who she gets to be when she is with him. So, what does this mean for you? It means that the qualities younger women find magnetic in older men are not locked behind age. They are practices available to anyone. Presence can be cultivated, emotional security can be learned. Generosity of spirit can be chosen, perspective can be grown, mystery can be embraced, freedom can be lived. Every man has the capacity to embody these qualities, regardless of the number of birthdays he has celebrated. And when he does, he becomes not just attractive, but unforgettable. So I invite you to reflect, not on how old you are, but on how you show up. Do you listen with presence? Do you offer safety through steadiness? Do you inspire curiosity by continuing to grow? Because if you do, you carry the essence of what makes attraction timeless, and younger women or any woman will feel it. Remember, love is not a competition of youth versus age. It is a meeting of energies, of stories, of desires. And when you embody these qualities, you don't just become someone women prefer, you become someone they cherish. And that, my friends, is the real secret.